I'm privileged to be a speaker on a topic that is very dear to my heart. And I want to stand on existing protocol and just go straight into where I think we should be going. I want to take us from the top where we are at, with all the treaties and protocols and all those heavy top discussions, and take us to the basics by telling 3 small stories. Last May, I was leaving Arusha, going back to Nairobi, and when we reached the border, another Ugandan was given 1 week to stay in Nairobi. He was permitted to stay in Kenya for only 1 week. Interestingly, this Ugandan had come into Nairobi for an engagement that was 3 weeks long, and at the airport when he entered Kenya, he had been given 6 months. So when he left and came to Arusha for a 2-day meeting, on return, he was given 1 week stay. When he challenged that and said, we have an EAC treaty and all the protocols that allow for us to stay for 6 months, the immigration officer told him that she does not work according to EAC rules, but the Kenyan immigration law. That same time, when we were coming for an academic visit, I have a Nigerian student with whom we came up to Arusha. He has a permit as a student to stay in Nairobi, and he thought that when we come to the border, it should be okay for him to be let in. When we reached there, they said, you're Nigerian, and Nigerians, Pakistanis, and some other people, you have to have applied for a visa at the High Commission in Nairobi before coming. This time for this meeting, I attempted to get that student here, and he went to the embassy, and they told him, bring letter X and letter Y. And when he took those letters, they told him, you're supposed to go online and apply for this and this and this, and there wasn't enough time. For that reason, he's not here. Those are 2 stories for me that illustrate the present contradictions that we have in our conception of Pan-Africanism, and that we need to deal with as we talk about Pan-Africanism, free movement of people, and the African Continental Free Trade Area. First is that we speak, we sign, but we do not do. We decry borders, which we say were forced upon us, but we protect the sovereignty that was granted by those very borders, with all that it takes, even if we know that it kills us to do so. We have a flawed self-conception where we look at other Africans as a problem to us, and we extend fraternal courtesies to non-Africans while treating our own fellows differently. The last story is of my 2 students, Rachel and Gasparino. Rachel is Kenyan and Gasparino is Tanzanian. I have hosted these 2 students at my home in Uganda. And 2 things came out of their visit. Rachel started a business of shea butter because she realized we grow a lot of it in northern Uganda and it's very expensive in Nairobi. So she brings small amounts informally and has been selling this shea butter to pay her school fees. Gasparino has a passion for music, and when he visited rural Uganda, he's now coming to shoot a video of his next song in Uganda. For me, that is the real promise of free movement and the Continental Free Trade Area. That people like this can see real gains from the interaction that we have at that level. So having said that, I want to say that for me, Pan-Africanism is now the bridge between what we are calling free movement of people and trade in goods, because it is the link that will secure the journey from this one side of movement to actually seeing gains in trade. And for me, Pan-Africanism sought to unite all Africans, regardless of social status, nationality, ethnicity, and other differences. The starting point, therefore, is at which level are we thinking? We need to think and act at many levels. Formal declarations are good, but we need to de-eliticize the process, because the bulk of those for whom we ultimately legislate and develop policies in this regard are not your typical elite. They are not you and me who can come and stay in a hotel like this, who can fly in a plane. They are those people who are engaged in informal trade, those people who do not have the capabilities to get themselves allowed into another country easily, those people who form part of the value chain that the keynote speaker alluded to. And so they do not necessarily represent big business. As we talk about all these things, we need to come down to that level. Pan-Africanism is the ideology. The ideology underpinning this concept is one that emphasizes identity. So how well we are ensuring that we are creating a common African identity that will underpin the solidarity and fraternity that we need to have in the face of the negative self-conception that our history has taught us is something we have to reflect on. When I was in Makerere University many years ago, we used to have a Pan-African movement. But today, when you go to Ugandan schools, you have patriotism clubs. So we have moved from looking at ourselves from that level as Africans to looking at ourselves as Ugandans. And this says something. Transnational epistemic communities, like all of us here, need to serve as ambassadors for the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are the ones who are going to have to build the bridge between that top level of policy and practice to the grassroots level of engagement. If ECOWAS talks to EAC, EAC talks to SADC, SADC talks to COMESA, I think there is a lot we can learn from each other. The other mechanism that I would seriously vouch for is education. I'm here with 3 students. One is Tanzanian, the other is Kenyan, the other is Ugandan, from my institute where they're offering a master's in regional integration. If we mainstream Pan-Africanism in each of our education programs, the way we are mainstreaming gender, the way we are mainstreaming STEM, I think we will go a long way in creating that value consensus that we need. The Inter-University Council of East Africa, and the speaker from GIZ alluded to it, is promoting centers of excellence and exchange of students and staff in science and technology. But my question is, as we emphasize on science and technology, what are we doing about the software? Because the mental borders that we are working within, in my opinion, are the biggest obstacle. So we need to look at the state of our mental infrastructure, and if we deal with that, then the politics that constantly trump all these good provisions we make will be dealt with. We need to be more systemic in our approach, and let us remember our experiences. If you look at, and this is, it may be controversial, but we are talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area. And most of the people who spoke here are either directly working in trade or economists and all that. So I saw the East African Business Council, I saw someone from the Directorate of Trade and Customs, but I did not see anyone from the East African Legislative Assembly. And we know that the politics has constantly trumped economics. So as we talk about domestication, we should not take for granted that bureaucrats and legislators actually are ideologically compliant. One time, a Kenyan MP made a statement mobilizing Kenyans to stone Ugandans and Tanzanians because they are bringing eggs into Kenya in the context of a common market of the EAC. Another time, the Speaker of Uganda's Parliament, who I have a lot of respect for, when the debate was on about the EAC passport, she said, which country is EAC? So if you can have a Speaker of a Parliament make a statement like that, then you ask yourself where the rest of the Ugandans are going with this. So to end, for me, we need to reawaken the spirit of Pan-Africanism, to practically indoctrinate young people through education and deliberately bring them to a shared ideational space where we can consolidate what I call a values economy. That is the sense of Pan-African identity. The transformation that we want to see can only come from us seeing ourselves differently. Thank you.
Dr.